A few weeks ago, we attended the third ever DDT College of Medicine White Coat ceremony at Boipuso Hall Fairground Holdings here in Gaborone. Although we were witnessing this recital of the Hippocratic Oath for the third year in a row, it is a sight that never gets old. These are some of the brightest minds in the country, dedicating themselves to the highest code of ethics and conduct as they begin their studies in medicine, pledging before God to, among other things, consecrate their lives to the service of humanity.
Respect the secrets that are confided in me, even after the patient has died.
And to not use their medical knowledge to violate human rights and civil liberties,
Even under threat.
The significance of putting on that white coat is made clear to all who come to witness yet another crop of students begin their journey to becoming much needed medical professionals. Threatening to ruin the beautiful moment, however, were recent questions that have been raised as high up as in Parliament over the credentials of the relatively new institution that is DDT College of Medicine, making us wonder whether these bright young Bafana are entrusting their futures to the wrong institution.
The long and short of it is, every institution has been required now to reapply as an ETP to make the gaps or add on the requirements of now the new regulations. DDT College has done that and submitted to BQA. We are the ones who are now waiting on BQA. They have been working with us. They even gave us workshops on how to fulfill their requirements, and we have done that. So we are just waiting on them for feedback. The issue with questions in Parliament is that the list of questions are asked, and all of them need to be answered. And sometimes you find that 12 questions have been asked and were supposed to be answered on one day, and then they would be divided among different times. It is not that it is a continuing problem that they come to see, but one of the things that we would have wished for those who had concerns to have come to us and come and see and verify. Because really there are no problems at DDT College of Medicine. Questions, some of the complaints that had come were things like aircon, which was easily fixable, and so we are looking, where's the tangibility? Are people saying that the college is not teaching quality? And that is not what is being said. Look at what the questions that are, how much are the students being charged at DDT? How much? Those are the questions that are coming in Parliament. We don't have a problem, of course, with disclosing those, but you find that the questions are not going to the core of education. The students are getting quality education from our experienced lecturers, both in education and in research, and have got high-end equipment. So we pledge that everybody come to verify what we are saying, don't take our word, and also visit the authorities themselves. We have met with BQA, we've met with BHPC, we have met with HRDC, we've met with the Minister of Tertiary Education, and they have advised where they have advised, and they are actually happy. Even the list that came in from BQA was even after BQA came to inspect, the list to show that our graduates on graduate will be recognized. So I hope that this would be able to settle it once and for all. I encourage people to get objective information. Come to the school. Come and interview the lecturers, come and see the labs, and go to the authorities. You will be assured that definitely DDT is actually a solution for medical education in Botswana, the region, and even the whole world.
We decided to take Chancellor Troiwe up on his invitation to see their operations for ourselves, and came here to their campus in Broadhurst, Gaborone, to try and ascertain the quality of education being offered to the students.
We ensure that our students are well-rounded when it comes to the attitude aspect. Then we ensure that they're well-rounded when it comes to the knowledge base, and we also build their skill base. The quality of education is excellent. It meets international standards. The curriculum is very robust. it has actually prepared our students to meet the 21st century needs.
Basically, in allopathic research of the college, we teach students to tap on our local knowledge, local indigenous knowledge, and then convert that knowledge into products which are non-cosmetic products. So these are the products, as you can see, but they are at a stage where we expect them to be taken by a company to do venture creation in association with HRDC strategy of advise institutions to do research and then transform them into a venture creation where any interested company can come and take these products and do manufacturing.
Most of the pharmacists, we are mostly in clinical aspects, but now we want to make sure that we produce pharmacists which are going to be able to now produce drugs, who are able to do now to manufacture, who are able to go and work under the drug regulatory unit, who are able to go there and then open their own pharmaceutical plant. That is pharmaceutics. And that's exactly what our students are doing right now.
At the moment, we have acquired equipment that allows us to comprehend, to integrate our theory into practice. For example, in the major disciplines such as clinical microbiology, we give our students an opportunity to work on cultures. As you can see here, a student is working in a safety cabinet where she is manipulating some cultures in a safe environment.
The Doctor Assistant Program is a new program in Botswana. We are mostly focused in training doctor assistants who work very closely with doctors. They can do basically anything a doctor is able to do except doing surgical procedures unsupervised.
What is the future of help? It's to help people find the great in themselves. The drive, the passion. Help them find their true potential. Help them stretch. Help them grow. That's why we help people help themselves, help the world, because a little help goes a long, long way. FNB, how can we help you?
Welcome back to First Issues as we continue to try and ascertain the quality of education being offered at DDT College of Medicine in light of the recent questions that have been raised regarding its credentials. We traced down the inaugural class to hear from their own mouths what the past few years as students at the relatively new college have been like. Now, as third-year students, they've been placed at various medical centers across the country.
Well, I've been dealing a lot with children, which I'm really not used to. So it's been a bit hectic, but I'm getting there. So pretty much I've learned a whole lot, obviously. I've learned how to do splints, how to work with, real staff members and how an actual workplace is.
I think the period that they take before they get to interact with clients is a bit long. However, the theoretical background is there so that at the first part of the attachment, it's very difficult for them to recall all that they have learned and put it in practice. But with a bit of cueing, it's easy.
Moving to the practical side is also interesting because what we learn from the theoretical side, we get hands-on on this practical side.
We took an hour-long drive to the Seventh-day Adventist Hospital here in Kanye to find out how the Pioneer class was performing during their attachment here. First, we spoke to doctor assistant students under Principal Nursing Officer Gabitse Ramantile's watch.
It just became so hard, especially when it comes to what you call, or call is when you work 24 hours. You have to spend the whole day malapeng, mo tirong, and then you go home maybe for lunch, and then you come back. At the same time, you have to prepare for a presentation. The doctor has given you an assignment on. At the same time, you're seeing patients. So it's kind of challenging. That's where I thought maybe it was going to be easy, but it is so hard.
The practicals, I actually think they're the best because they gave us a chance to actually put into practice what we've been learning, the theoretical part that we've been getting for the past 2 years. And the staff, the doctors, they've been teaching us a lot. It was really educational.
Ke la ntlha re bona program ya gona yana mo lehatsheng la rena la Botswana. Mme ba ba leng kwano ba tota ke tsa gore re tsa gore lehatshe la rona le ka go gongwe ha go ka nontshiwa program ya gona jalo be ba akanyetswa sengwe le sengwe sa botshelo, including the registrations and the practicing licenses.
What is the future of help? It's to help people find the great in themselves. The drive, the passion. Help them find their true potential. Help them stretch. Help them grow. That's why we help people help themselves, help the world, because a little help goes a long, long way. FNB, how can we help you?
Welcome back to First Issues. As in this segment of our program, we continue to sound the alarm on the non-communicable disease that is type 2 diabetes. Having seen that its exponential growth across the globe threatens the growth of both industry and nations. Last week, Professor Kiran Bhagat informed us that although type 2 diabetes can have acute symptoms such as constant thirst and frequent urination, as the body tries to rid itself of high levels of sugar, it can also linger in the body undetected until it has noticeably damaged organs within the body. Tonight, therefore, we ask him whether it is simple for medical professionals to detect diabetes, seeing that it is not so straightforward for the individual.
What I recommend now is a patient come in actually 2 hours after they've eaten. Often people want to come in and measure their sugar when they're fasting, which is not a bad idea, and internationally that's what we do now. But what I like to know is, what is the sugar after you've eaten? Is the body able to cope? And is the sugar level down after 1 or 2 hours? And if it's not, it means that that meal that you've had, the body is not able to dispose of it. So you can do a fasting sugar, but I often recommend do a sugar an hour or 2 after you've eaten to see whether the body is actually handling that sugar. But often you can pick up diabetics in the public that have never suspected that they're diabetic. You also need to be very careful if there's a family history of diabetes. In addition, we've talked about this in the previous session, where we know classically what a diabetic looks like. They're usually overweight, they're usually eating the wrong foods, they're not exercising. So if you fit into that, if your waist circumference is that measurement we talked about, if you are looking more like an apple than a pear, if you are not exercising, if you do have a family history, then you know that whether you feel well or not, go and have yourself tested, because it's such an imminently treatable condition which we'll come to. It's a condition, unlike many of the chronic diseases, which has its basis entirely in lifestyle. And if you are able to regulate rigorously and with discipline and relentlessly the lifestyle changes, you can cure your diabetes.
Are you able to cure it before it's fully manifested, it's fully blown diabetes, or do you manage it beforehand?
Both. I mean, you know, often even in public, when we do a wellness testing, or in the public sector where we just take people off the street and measure their sugar, and we don't know how long that sugar's been high. Remember, often, like we say, when we pick it up, it's been in the system for a while. If it's high enough for us to be worried, we will recommend to that member of the public to go and have other tests done to make sure that other organs have not been affected. If we see that they've not been affected, then you're truly looking at primary prevention. You're looking at all the things we talked about, the exercise, and we'll talk about those in a minute. If, however, you begin to see, even we are able to do very sensitive tests, for example, with the kidneys. We call it a urine microalbumin test, where we can actually see small amounts of a protein in the urine, because what's happened is the filtering mechanism of the kidneys has broken down. The sugar has begun to block the filtering capacity of the kidneys. And what happens is the kidneys are now filtering things they shouldn't filter into the urine, and we're able to pick it up. And if we pick up these things called microalbumin, it means that the kidneys have already been affected and you need to be on pills. So there is going to be a category of patients in whom you cannot simply control with lifestyle. There are going to be situations where you'll initially start them on, maybe even if it's very high insulin, where you take injections, and then you switch them to tablets. And eventually, if they are able to consistently maintain a radical change in their lifestyle, which we are advocating to public at large. We talked about the fact that most of our public are consuming things that they shouldn't be consuming. But unfortunately, most of our public are not aware. If we're able to conscientize them, to say these are the things you shouldn't be doing. I always say, for example, to our patients, that where you should be shopping in a supermarket is on the outskirts. Because on the outskirts are things that don't need to be advertised that are healthy. The fruits and vegetables are on the outskirts. The things that are on the inside are all the processed junk, all the things that are in boxes, which is where the supermarket makes its most money, which is why it's always within your eye reach. So when you walk into a supermarket, all the peripheries are not in your vision. It's all, if you look, it's all in the middle. So that's what I say in terms of prevention of diabetes.
So at some point, it's completely reversible?
For sure. It's very much like blood pressure. We have definitions of diabetes. For example, just before the standard World Health Organization criteria for being defined as a diabetic, we have what's called an IGT, which means an impaired impaired glycemic index. In other words, you're on the cusp, you're in the gray. And if we can catch you at that phase where you're just borderline, you're just skating on thin ice, and we say, look, wake up, smell the coffee, do this, do this, do this, do this, you're able to reverse it.
It is time for Business Basics. Small businesses and startups are extremely volatile. Therefore, to secure financing, they need very solid and convincing business plans. Not only must the SME owner demonstrate that they have a capable and qualified team through their plan, as we were advised last week, they must also show that they have a good grasp of the finances involved. As Petra Sibina likes to say, business is a numbers game.
Financials and focus are actually another key component which potential investors would critically look at. As an existing business, they would like to appreciate the performance over the past couple of years. It's usually about 3 years because they just want to compare exactly what is happening, whether there's been growth in the business, to appreciate the cost structure in terms of what has been the overheads and so forth and so on. In terms of when you put together the historics, it has, like I mentioned, it has to be at least a minimum of 3 years so that we can actually compare and see the trend. It's important that you explain if there's any growth between year on year. Investors would like to know exactly what is driving the growth. So within your notes, you need to cover exactly what is happening, what drove the growth. You also look at the benchmark. They will benchmark whether you are generating sufficient gross profit vis-a-vis the industry you are operating in. So if you are below the industry, the industry benchmark in terms of your GP, you also need to articulate what has led that. It could have been maybe you have a single supplier that is actually charging you more than the average, hence why your margins are slightly low. Again, even if it's more, they would like to know exactly how have you managed to really attain your gross profit margin that is above the norm. One of the reasons could be you've had a reputation with your supplier such that now they're able to really give you more preparation rates and so forth and so on. And the next thing they'll look at is actually now the operational costs, to really say. They'll look at mainly items that are sticking out in terms of size. So for any expenditure that is above normal, you need to explain what is happening. For example, we might be taking a huge knock on maintenance. So then investors would like to appreciate what drives that. That could be a function of us using old equipment, and that could really say the reason why we're looking for funding, perhaps we need to replace this equipment with new equipment so much that we can keep our operational head down. They're looking at things like your employee cost, your salaries and wages. You know, what's the industry norm and where are you and what are the reasons. So it's very important that you explain all the trend, the trend that can actually pick unnecessary attention of the investors before they ask. It's important that you explain in advance. And secondly, one of the things that they also want to appreciate is actually the growth rate in between the years. At what rate has business been growing? Is it stagnant, is it growing, or is it declining? Again, if the business is declining, you need to explain exactly what happened. One of the reasons that that could lead to that could be maybe you decided to exit to drop one of the product that wasn't doing quite well. Maybe you decided to exit one of the market segment because it wasn't really paying off. Again, if you actually are performing above the norm, there might be other reasons as well. Maybe you managed to introduce a new product. Maybe it was as a result of entering into new segments. So definitely they will need to appreciate that. And after that, now you really need to work onto the focus. Based on what has happened in the past, how do you think the future will turn out for your business? Now, when you do the focus, there are a few things that you need to articulate. First of all, you need to remind the investors of the segments that you are playing in. For example, if I'm a clothing store, I might be covering the children's segment, the women and the men segment. And now the second part they will really say, they look at in terms of the revenue. If you have been running this line, what has been the performance of this segment in the previous year? Maybe we would say we managed to really achieve quite well within our men's section. Our women's section has been flat for 3 years, and our children's section is actually dropping, right? When you look yourself vis-a-vis other people who provide similar services, how do you stack up in terms of competition? We could say, yes, in the men's section we are the leader, in the market, in the women's section we are average, in the children's section we are slightly low, which means maybe for our future we need to maintain our leading position in terms of the men's section. The women will probably need to consider introducing a couple of more products that can actually maybe improve our rate. As for the children, maybe we need to exit that market, or we need to completely revamp our lines within the children's segment so that we end up being average as opposed to completely low. So they're looking at that. So for any trend that is up or low, there has to be an explanation. At least it's able to articulate to them what happened, and they will appreciate.